Welcome to KGPT's Wichita's Biz That Is. I'm Tim Witzman, president of the Wichita Independent Business Association. And if surveys are right, the number one issue for people in our community is water. So today we have Ben Nelson, who's the Director of Strategic Services within the Wichita Public Works Department. Now, that was a mouthful, and I'm questioning about the Strategic Services, which used to be the name of our spies in World War II. But I don't think Ben's into that.
No.
Welcome, Ben.
Hi, thanks for having me, Tim.
Let's start off a little background on you. How does a guy get to where you are?
You're
a Wichita guy.
I am. I'm a native Wichitan. I moved to the suburban Chicago area for a couple of years in grad school. Made my way back to Kansas City and then back to Wichita. Started at the city of Wichita back in 2008 and started my current role with our Public Works Department and also helping with water and sewer issues back in 2011.
Very good. What prompted you to want to go in this kind of this part of the business?
You know, infrastructure is a really important thing for our community. You had mentioned at the top how water is ranked as a #1 priority in our community, and actually a couple of different community engagement efforts we've done recently. But that's because of the important role that infrastructure, not only water and sewer, but also our stormwater, our drainage assets, like the flood control, the big ditch, our roads, our bridges, all those kinds of things really are the backbone of a community and make it all work. And so it's a really interesting field to be involved in.
Well, when I taught, in addition to being the first county administrator here, I tell people, if you get up in the morning and you go to the restroom and you make your coffee, you take your shower, you brush your teeth, and you drive to work, and you don't notice anything, government has done a good job.
And in a way, we're kind of like offensive linemen in football. And I like to use this analogy, especially in public works where we're dealing with infrastructure. It's a lot of times best if people don't notice us. I mean, it can be kind of problematic when something goes wrong, like you mentioned.
No, I completely agree with you. I get so sick of, I have to look on television, I wonder what the president or the governor has done for me today. I don't want that. I want to just go about my business and hope that you guys have done a really good job.
And that's exactly what our role is in a nutshell, is to make sure that the rest of the community can do what they need to do, whether it's business, nonprofit folks, healthcare, no matter what it is, that they're able to work about their daily business or their daily lives and be able to be assured that all the things necessary to do that are in place.
Okay, let's start with water in the state. Of course, the rules, et cetera, are defined by the state. Give me a little bit about what that structure looks like and that we have to operate within.
Yes, the state of Kansas manages all the water rights that it grants to different types of users. Municipalities like Wichita have different water rights where the state allows them to take a certain amount of water from different sources each year. It also does the same thing for agricultural interests and then large industrial customers like Wolf Creek Nuclear Plant that gets water from John Redmond Reservoir. So the state manages who gets what and how much they get per year. So we have water rights allocated to us by the state of Kansas, and they were provided decades ago when we built Cheney Lake, when we bought the storage out of Cheney Lake back in the 60s, and even before that when we drilled wells in the underground aquifer, the Equus beds, which is our other major water supply source.
Within the state, do we have any growing supplies, or is everything diminishing? I mean, we have reservoirs, some water's taken out of rivers. How's that going?
Yeah, we have a lot of reservoirs that have lost some of their storage capacity. So basically, a reservoir is just a big pool that stores water, so it can be used some other time. And sedimentation will run into reservoirs when water comes down as rain. It sometimes will push dirt and mud and stuff into the reservoirs, and it loses its storage capacity. Some of the different reservoirs around Kansas have lost their storage capacity, some of their storage capacity. Cheney Lake, which is the one reservoir Wichita uses, actually is in good shape with its sedimentation. It's only lost, I think it's about 5 to 8% of its capacity. John Redmond Reservoir, I had mentioned earlier, has lost I forget 30 or 40% of its capacity. So in some cases it's declining the amount of water that's available because of sedimentation. But there are also some untapped sources of water which are being explored. I know the State Water Authority has long talked about potentially better utilizing utilizing the Missouri River up in northeast Kansas and tapping some of that water and diverting it for uses throughout the state. And then here locally, what we built a couple of years ago was the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project, which pulls water out of the Little Arkansas River. So there are some sources that aren't as well utilized as they could be.
Now, when it comes to rivers, they don't exactly stop at state borders, which are drawn straight lines on maps that don't make a lot of sense sometimes.
Yeah.
So we have issues, do we not, with Colorado, with Nebraska, with Missouri?
Yeah, generally I think in a lot of cases around the country, surrounding states will have legal battles over water rights. And earlier we had talked about what the state of Kansas does. They manage all of the interstate issues that related to water. So it's not something that we do here locally, but yeah, it can be very contentious. I know there have been lawsuits that have even made their way up to the Supreme Court in the past about water rights, specifically I know from Kansas and Colorado and Nebraska and Kansas. So surrounding states, those are always very contentious issues.
And it seems that's just going to grow in the future with the demands on water and the availability.
Yeah, water demand keeps going up around the country. Obviously, we have a growing population, so water demand increases along with that, and we have the same amount of water on Earth as we've always had. So knowing that, obviously increasing demand, supply staying the same, there's always an increased pressure for water.
Yeah, the world economy's kind of run on petroleum for 100 and some years.
Yeah.
Now water seems to be the scarce resource, or the one that people are most worried about for the future. Are there any new technologies coming down the pipe that might help?
Really, probably as water becomes more and more scarce, and this is really more of an issue in other parts of the country, like the western U.S., where the water is not plentiful anyway, and then they have these really bad drought conditions. There's new technology that can desalinate water more efficiently than we used to be able to do. That's pulling like seawater or
countries like
brackish
Israel,
washes.
that's about where they get almost all their water.
Israel is very dependent on water from the sea. Also, reusing water that gets cleaned up at wastewater treatment plants and used for irrigation or for industrial purposes. And some communities like Wichita Falls, Texas, are even using it back in their water treatment processes and putting it back into the potable, the drinking water supply.
Well, that's an interesting point on which to take our first break on Wichita's Biz That Is. We'll be right back.